Perfect. Well, like I said, thank you very much for coming on, mate. I appreciate it. I don't know how many podcasts you're on nowadays, but I do appreciate coming on. It's great to have insight from all over the board, really. But yeah, I thought I'd start with I've looked through your career as a whole, and I thought where I want to start is just from the beginning, really, because I know that everyone in SEO has just a completely different way of getting into the sector. What was your in? Was it an agency, freelance? Was it just something that caught your eye, or was it something completely different?
Yeah, it's a funny one because, as you say, everyone sort of gets into it in a different way. There's typically not, even nowadays, degrees or formal education in it as such. So you often find that people got into it in very different ways. I was very much just got interested in marketing full stop when I was at college and then university. The internet was very new back then. And then I kind of started getting into this rabbit hole of you could become a millionaire online, you can work from a beach on a laptop, all that kind of stuff. And that fascinated me. And then so I was doing all sorts of things, you name it, email marketing, affiliate marketing, PPC, making websites, writing the sales copy, all of that kind of stuff. And then I realized, of course, I do need traffic to the website and I don't want to pay for it. So I started looking into SEO. Hated it because it was just far too technical for my liking. It was like you had to kind of work out percentages of where keywords were and all that kind of stuff. But then I finally thought, I'm going to bite the bullet. I've got to have a go here. And I found this online course. It was just emailed to me every single week. And I literally just followed it step by step and started getting results. And then from that point onwards, the journey started really. And then the catalyst for it to become my career was whilst I was at uni, I was working at a call center and then became full-time after uni, became a manager there. And there was a phase of redundancies. So ultimately it was a case, I've been there sort of 5 years. That wasn't the career choice I had in mind. And I just took the plunge, thought, okay, I'm going to take redundancy. And then the day after my final shift at the call center, I started my first official SEO job. And that was at Ladbrokes doing the casino product. And the knowledge I had was just like a massive like hockey stick in terms of being surrounded with other SEOs and working in gambling. I was just like blown away by how much I didn't know, and then I kind of went from there.
Amazing, yeah. I bet there was quite the shock just jumping into. The SEO with everyone there and gambling at the same time. It's probably quite the leap, isn't it? How long did you spend at Ladbrokes then? Was it a full-time SEO thing, or was it there being marketing and observing and just?
Yeah, so it was full-time SEO, and it was a new department as well. So it was working within the digital department. So they had affiliate managers there as well. And then we would work with the respective product teams. So I was there for 2 years total. And so I was solely responsible for casino across all the territories. And then each of my colleagues within the SEO team were responsible for a different product. So be it games, bingo, poker, sportsbook. And then each of those kind of products had their dedicated marketing team as well. So you got additional exposure to sort of what would be considered traditional marketing and the other marketing activities they were doing across the business as well.
Right, okay, that's cool then. Yeah, I didn't expect it to be so sort of segmented, but I suppose with a brand that big, how did you find the gambling side of things? But not the gambling side of things, but applying SEO as a whole within that industry, because obviously it's the experience we both have is very different to the majority of work that we do. How did that differ from? Well, I suppose starting with that, it doesn't really differ that much. But looking back, what were the huge sort of steps within there that you took?
Yeah, so I think just to caveat, the time period in which I was there was 2008 to 2010. So the internet and what SEO was very different back then. So it was what it allowed me to do though was kind of understand all the moving parts around it. So for instance, we had the developers that we were able to speak to directly, and so that opened my eyes on how the actual build of the website impacted the SEO performance. And then also we had the respective country managers as well that would do the translation and localization of the content. So feeding those SEO requirements into them to go about localizing that content as well. So that was that was kind of a couple of key elements that sort of opened my eyes as to how many, like I say, moving parts there were for SEO. In terms of sort of how we approached it back then, as I say, SEO was very different back in those days, and it was a case of getting as many links as humanly possible, exact match anchor text, all that kind of stuff. But from a kind of an on-page point of view, there's still very much the fundamentals at play that you would actually do today, and actually making good content. The difference being is the definition of good content has evolved over time. So there's good content purely for SEO, which it was back then. I remember the on-page optimization I did back then versus what I do now is just night and day. It's like horrific to read the 2008, 2010 on-page content versus today's content, which should actually be genuinely useful for the end user. And then you've got kind of the sprinkling of the SEO best practice within that content as well.
Yeah, 100% is the difference between then and now.
Yeah,
that was one of my sort of questions, really. It's a good way to go into that. Obviously, from the top level point of view, the fundamentals are the same. It's just the details within. Is there any? I think suppose the two parts of the question is what from back then compared to now is completely reversed. I mean, there's a lot of things that are completely reversed, but completely reversed in how they work and how impactful they were then compared to now. And then obviously on the flip side, what were you doing back then that is still just as important now, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's actually kind of, I would say just out the gate, the same answer, but different approaches. So back then, you could brute force authority. So it would just be as long as your on-page content was quote unquote relevant, and by relevant, very keyword heavy. And then your backlink profile would be the supposed authority, because of course the search engines were very, very reliant on that as a signal to say, right, okay, well, you're trustworthy, you're linked to via many different sources. And by the way, it's the exact match anchor text. So it's like online roulette, for instance. It's like, so therefore you must be an authority in online roulette. The difference now, of course, is authority is still very much there. And it should be, but it's because it's been now rounded out with the fact of you need to demonstrate true authority. And so that could be citations from well-respected sources. So if, for instance, you've provided data that gets cited a lot from other publications, if you've got what would be considered a true life expert that you have within the business, and again, they've got a kind of almost a social graph of media coverage or articles they write on many different channels, podcasts, for instance, or YouTube videos, whatever medium it is. If you've got kind of what would be considered not only a real world expert in the business, but that is demonstrated across their overall online coverage. So as I say, the authority piece is been very much there throughout the existence of Google, really. But it's back then you could brute force it. Today it's a real thing. You've got to actually be an expert, and you've got to have that authority and experience as well. And hence why they've rolled out the EEAT and continue to iterate that. But also, of course, it's got, in my view anyway, a lot clearer for the search engines to actually understand that. They'll get it wrong, but it's definitely a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, brute forcing things now will just take you to the other side of things, and it will just put you to zero pretty much everywhere. Yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to look at, I suppose, isn't it? Going backwards and then looking at what the case is now. Do you think there's anything from the past that we'll see again in terms of tactics that worked, but in a more sort of less spammy way? Is there anything from the past that you've seen tactic wise that could come back in the future, depending on which direction Google goes? But I suppose there's not a huge amount of things that are just cut off completely. But would anything come back that you've seen before?
In fairness, I don't think there's anything that immediately jumps to mind that would kind of come back. Instead, I think it's just everything's still rooted in those fundamentals from way back then, but it's just completely evolved and matured. So it's not really anything per se has disappeared in order to then come back. It's just the way in which it's done is a lot more sophisticated, and it's a lot more empathetic to like the end user, because like previously you only cared about the search engine, and the byproduct was you got more traffic and then eventually you'll get more sales. You can't look at it like that nowadays, because even the search results are quite polluted now with all kinds of features, and the fact that it is quite a mission nowadays. If you're doing hardcore research, it's quite a mission to open loads of different tabs, loads of different search results and stuff. So that traffic that you get rewarded, you have to make use of that, and you have to be a real use and benefit to that end reader. And then of course they'll go and eventually hopefully make an inquiry with you. But yeah, so as I say, it's not so much, in my view anyway, it's not so much that stuff has categorically disappeared to then come back in a kind of a newer form. It's just a continued evolution of those fundamental pieces. And as I say, the search engine's got more sophisticated to actually make you concentrate on being a true marketer rather than just an SEO hack.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great point. Yeah, it's a huge difference now, isn't it, between just being a complete sort of SEO head to then having to evolve into marketing, like you say.
Yeah.
I think brand has been one of the biggest things for the past probably 10 years and more. Well, it's always been there, but I suppose SEOs more recently have been forcing themselves to work on brand like it's a slightly new thing, even though it's always been sort of ever present. Speaking of the current search results and then the way that Google is formulating things now, what's your opinion on everything that's happening in terms of the new rollout of AI snippets within the search results, the changes they're testing and trying within for certain different schema snippets that are coming through? What's your opinion on seeing all of these things? From my perspective, it looks like, I think I made a video on this, of more of a ramble of they've tried to catch up way too quickly and made mistakes before testing enough without to try and catch up with everyone else in terms of OpenAI and Bing. What's your opinion on those things? Do you think it's at a good level, or do you think there's still so much work to do?
I agree. I think it was panic stations. It's funny because they being Google have had the ability to do this kind of stuff way ahead of probably anyone, because of how they have needed to make their algorithms. It's machine learning. It's all of that kind of stuff. They've owned DeepMind for however many years. They've got all that fundamental information and capabilities. What they did though, there was absolutely panic, as you said, just rolled it out to the best of their ability at the time. And I think they're in trouble. And I'll go out on a limb here and say, I do feel that they're very aware of general user behavior shifting. And rather than it being one route to find information, it's going to be very, very fragmented. So it's going to be across your social platforms, and TikTok is really sort of becoming a little bit search oriented, but even a little bit at the volume of users they've got, that's enough to get a bit of a foothold into the search space. And then also just people utilizing communities and kind of their research now, because people have also evolved in terms of getting used to how to search. Again, like going back to way back in the day, you would do a very ultra generic search term and then scroll through about 10 pages of results. Whereas nowadays people don't bother looking at the second page, and they do an initial search, then refine their search as they get more and more educated. But it'll be a similar pattern in respect of the behavior is going to change. People will look on multiple platforms. They won't just rely on a search engine. They'll utilize AI-centric results as well in respect of even ChatGPT as an example, because it's so accessible to people. You think, right, I'm only going to ask a quick question. I can't be asked to find out how many calories in an apple by searching on Google, how many calories in an apple, reading the number one ranked article that's got 20,000 words, and then somewhere in there it says it's got X number of calories. I don't, as a user, that's useless to me. I might as well just jump ship from Google and utilize another platform. So that was a long-winded answer to sort of say, I think ultimately they're very aware of their market share potentially getting eroded over the next handful of years, and quite significantly. And they just really wanted to sort of get something out there quickly, and then sort of probably learn from their mistakes and then roll it out properly in the future.
Yeah, 100%. I think it'll be interesting to see what they roll out to make up, like just to make amends. They're going to get rinsed on Twitter regardless by SEOs, I think, regardless of what improvements they bring. It always happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's getting a lot more. The word you use, fragmented, is perfect, because I think the way that I've always behaved with Google is using each bit of information to my disposal to get whatever I want. I tend to skip past the AI overview. Like, I just scroll up like it's not there, so I just block it off completely, which is obviously not what they want. But I think because of the like I said, the panic that's gone into it, they've made a lot of mistakes. But they're still pushing through, aren't they? I'm not sure with the even smaller things like the Google My Business now having AI generated descriptions, even if whoever owns it hasn't put anything in there. So now they're just creating them from whatever they know, which I don't think's very good. To be honest, like, having AI within there to be able to write things is perfect, but doing it on a whim for other people's information doesn't quite sit right with me. But also the search results as well, in terms of paid as well. They've got the AI overviews. People always ask in some set areas, and then it'll be like 4 paid ads, and then you get the rest, and then more paid ads. It's so convoluted now. But what I have noticed recently, and I don't know if it's something that you've seen reported or seen yourself, is the reduction of Reddit-heavy search results recently. It's only been a few weeks, I think, since it's really started to come to light. But what was your whole reaction to rolling out Reddit as one of the largest sort of, it just ate traffic completely, didn't it? It just ate everyone's traffic up, and now they're slowly starting to bring it back down. What was your reaction, and what was the sort of situation on your end when that was going on?
Absolutely bonkers. It's the Wild West out there. It's like, I mean, you've only got to see it, the couple of examples that people fished out of, like health related searches, and then sort of obviously someone on Reddit is taking the mick with their response, and yet of course it's been gobbled up and spat out in like right in front of every searcher to sort of see and potentially, unfortunately, take action, because we're not we can't over sort of estimate our ability to not be silly and go, oh yeah, okay, that's what I'm going to do, without kind of thinking it through. But I mean, on one hand, they being Google again, wanted to make it clear, right? Okay, well, we want a very, very good user experience for the web. So by that, we're going to surface the best results for what we believe the intent is, and we're going to, in effect, choose those results by who do we think is, and again, I'll go to that point of a trusted authority within the space. And yes, you can somewhat manufacture that to a degree, but let's face it, if you're not an expert, you're going to get found out. And then overnight, flip a switch, and then it's like, okay, well, any waif or stray on the internet that now happens to have posted on a forum such as Reddit or a platform such as Reddit can now be surfaced straight away as the authoritative voice in search, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. So I don't know. I mean, I'm glad they're kind of toning it down, but I don't know how they're necessarily going to kind of walk back from this, especially as they probably don't want to, because they've got a partnership with Reddit and utilizing the API. Yeah. So watch this space, really, is all I can say. But for the here and now, I'm not in the nicest possible way. I'm not really paying attention to it in respect of the general sort of approach for the client work anyway remains the same. Still continue to sort of make them, fully optimized with best practice, but then also consult them on a business standpoint as well, and understand how they are maximizing their traffic, and building that awareness and building that trust anyway. And then whatever happens on search is whatever happens on search. And then just one sort of final point of that: if you're an SEO and you're kind of thinking, right, what on earth is this going to mean for my career? Continue to learn and educate yourself as you have been over the course of your career so far, because SEO skill sets are very transferable. If Google like absolutely went to the wall and lost their search share, or search as we know it just failed to exist, I don't care. I'll take my knowledge and optimization capabilities and leverage that across any other platform or any other medium. It doesn't matter whether it's search, it doesn't matter whether it's social. You're understanding at the core, what are people wanting? How can we serve them that content? What format does it need to be? Oh, and by the way, are there any other nuances for that particular platform to optimize to get that exposure? So to any SEOs out there sort of worrying about what the future of their career could look like if Google went down the pan, in short, just concentrate on your skill set and understand that it's very transferable, and you'll be able to survive during that period.
100%. Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think it's surprising, isn't it, the amount that is transferable, even like, because when I suppose like you're in the mud doing sort of the SEO practices, it's very difficult to see how, you know, X, Y, and Z can be transferred into a different department completely. Like a majority of the skills can be transferred to, if you want to flip it to sales.
Yeah,
a lot of SEOs would be good at sales just because of the knowledge they have and the way that they can communicate that. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right as well with Reddit. The only thing that I forgot to mention was that really bugged me before we move on from ranting about Google was I think you mentioned it, the speed of search results changing with Reddit. Really annoyed me when I saw that a comment from less than a day ago ranked number one, when anything anyone else does would never do it in half a day or a day. It's pretty much unheard of unless you're Forbes. But yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on with all that, and I shall move it on very swiftly, because I wanted to go back to your experience throughout your career, but specifically the differences throughout the entire time. I know that you've been in a lot of different sort of agencies with a lot of different sort of sectors and specializations. What has been sort of the main differences that you've picked up throughout the years from the different agencies and different places you've been at in regards to whether it be the SEO side of things, or the way that they work, or the way the cultures are? What are the big takeaways that you've found so far?
Probably in terms of, in my view, again, just based on purely my experience, what makes a successful agency and environment is a camaraderie of whereby the various teams do work together for the common good of the agency, but also, of course, their clients. So rather than SEO sit in a cupboard and the paid media guys are over there, you know, splashing the cash, as long as everyone's kind of working together, that's absolutely the success, what makes a successful agency. But also just working to frameworks and, you know, sort of getting a clear directional approach to how we do things. So if, for instance, it's a case of, okay, from a project management point of view, we manage it in this way. We use this tool. We've got everything centralized. We've got SOPs so that anyone can kind of follow a nice, consistent way of output. So rather than it being cookie cutter, template, or anything like that, like I say, it's a framework. It's a fundamental practice versus an agency that would just be very sporadic. Client A, it's done this way. Client B, it's done this way. It's still producing content, for instance, but they're just inefficient. They're, you know, like the output is sort of very inefficient and very ineffective, and kind of just chasing your tail all the time. The other side of it, in respect of what again sort of makes, in my view, a sort of successful agency, is the buy-in from the top, in respect of, do they pay attention to each of the channels in a kind of how should I put it, in a respectful way. So just because, for instance, one is the nice sexy channel, so it could be social or it could be the paid media, like, that doesn't necessarily get all the attention, and everything's kind of like approached in a very sort of pragmatic way in respect of what is best for the client, not what is best for the bottom line necessarily directly for the agency. So understanding the client needs as well, and respecting the client needs and working towards that. And then the other side of it is, rather than just the agency side, it's the client side as well, working with clients that have the desire to grow, that have the desire to execute what you need them to execute, and are all in. I've worked with like all kinds of businesses whereby you've got what would be considered your mass global corporate entities that not only have they not really got the right people in-house in place that would be dealing with you as an SEO, they, no disrespect to them, but they haven't got, they've just been put into that role. They haven't got really a true understanding of marketing. They haven't got a true understanding of digital, and yet they're your point of contact. And that company has just so many reams of red tape that they need to burst through, let alone you need to sort of go on that journey with them. So working with, trying to cherry pick your clients in respect of, right, they're the kind of business that we work excellently with. It doesn't even have to be sector by sector, just the type of business that has the desire to grow, tears down the red tape, and allows you to progress with the work that you're doing. So they're the differences I've seen, and it's sort of what I'd say, sort of splitting into two: the agency portion side of things, how are they structured, how do they approach things, how do they deliver things, the general culture of, you know, sort of making sure people are learning and developing all the time, and then the client side of things, are they the right type of client and the right type of business?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. Yeah, and I think I can see obviously the different ways you've explained that. I can see the sort of experience from client to client, different, SEO to SEO and different agencies. What do you think is the fundamental changes, if there are a couple of changes in the next, by 2030 within, I don't think SEO just as itself, but with marketing in general, by 2030, what are the things that you expect to be sort of blowing up, like in terms of, back in the day when social began to blow up and that became such a powerhouse? Do you think there is a powerhouse that, like TikTok, that's coming? Well, it's already here. That is there something else that you think the search space will be taken up by, or another just points to the marketing world? Do you think there's something to expect in the next 10-ish years?
I don't know about a platform, but what I see, or what I think, is that those brands and companies that treat themselves like a media company will win. And simply because, as I was going to my point earlier, if search dies in the way that we know it now, people still need to find stuff and still need to consume content. If you act as a media company, all of that information that you put out there will be optimized for every single platform, every single content type. And you can start that today. You know, you've been able to do this for years now, but even if it's a pretty arbitrary approach of, I'm taking all my research for the possible customers that my client want to attract, all their pain points, what do they need to find out during all their stages of the funnel, be it from all the way from awareness to the intent to buy and everything in between. What do I need to create that serves that purpose? And how can I reformat that and redistribute it across all the other platforms that they reside? So it doesn't have to be TikTok, but there's a good chance that your audience is going to be on TikTok, even in a casual fashion. They're not consuming business information, but, you know, the For You page is going to become, you know, somewhat populated with that information if you show the platform you enjoy that. So any platform, it doesn't matter. What I really say is, if you want to survive as a brand in the next 10, 20, 30 years when it comes to the digital side of things, behave like a media company, set up a media division if need be, and then every bit of output that you put out, that you go and sort of create and put out there is optimized and considered for every single platform and every single format. And then whatever the so-called juggernaut platform of tomorrow is, you won't be far wrong in positioning yourself like that, because you just jump onto it. It's fine. You've got the framework in place. You jump onto it. Platform X comes along, or well, there's one called that now, but platform Y comes along, and then you can just move on to that. You've got the framework and the structure in place to do that. And if it's virtual reality, it doesn't matter. You've still got the principles in place to say, right, we are now going to create a virtual experience. And how does that look? What does that look like? What do our virtual reality consumers need? Well, they need, say, a storefront. They need to be able to go in and try on those jeans and stuff like that. How can we serve that to them? So it doesn't matter whether it's augmented reality, virtual reality, hammer and chisel, it goes back to, because everything explodes. It doesn't matter. It's like you've got those principles to deploy that content and information. And the brands that do it like that, I think will be almost invincible, really.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that your answer there is absolutely spot on, and I think it's definitely the points that if anyone takes is to be everywhere and not think that you don't need it. I think a lot of businesses and a lot of people will half not, it can't be asked, and half think, that's not for us. Everything is for everyone.
Yeah.
And regardless of how it is, if people see it as boring or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like you say, just get the exposure out there, and that will keep you alive business wise for a very long time. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna pause it there. I'm going to stop it there because I don't want to take up too much of your time. But yeah, this whole chat has been great. I think your insights and way of seeing everything that's going on at the moment is very aligned with mine. And I think the future is looking good as long as we keep seeing it that way and nothing drastic happens. But yeah, if search does go out the window, we'll do another podcast and talk about that.
Yeah, that's right.
At some point.
I'll see you next week then.
Well, you never know nowadays, do you?
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, you can click on the links on the screen now, or subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.